Hello everyone, this is Hedieh and here is another video on financial modeling hints and tricks.
In this video, I want to share with you an audit or productivity tool that I use when I'm reviewing someone else's financial models. As you know, all projects are different and they have their own unique issues. And it might not be possible to generalize issues related to projects, even of the same nature. However, throughout the years reviewing other people's financial model, I realized that there are some issues that almost come up in all projects. So I made a checklist, and when I'm reviewing someone else's financial model, I go over this list one by one, and this will help me to be faster when I'm preparing my first report on a financial model. Let's now dive into the spreadsheet. All right, first of all, like I showed you in my previous video on the Q&A sheet, I insert this sheet within the financial model that I am reviewing. And then the first thing I do, and I come here and I write down the project name, I write the financial model file name, very important, and then the date that I'm doing the review of the financial model. So I have identified 54 issues that I'm actually separating by type. So for example, I start with the model mechanics. So I do a review of the model mechanics. Then I go to the timing, the flags and counters that would enable the financial model to be flexible. CapEx items, the details, whether, the model contains enough details regarding the basically I'm doing some benchmarking on CapEx, everything related to CapEx, and then the financing fees, which will be also included in the project cost. And then sources of funds, how I'm going to actually finance these costs that I have defined, in my uses. And then once I have these sections, I have a full review of the SNU, the sources and uses statement. Then I switch to OPEX items. I do a review of the OPEX assumptions, OPEX calculations, and benchmarking of OPEX, and major maintenance. Technical parameters, which are different for each project, and the tariff as well. You need to do also a benchmarking and market research maybe as well here. And then regarding financing instruments, you also need to do a check and to make sure that, all the sources of funds that have been defined in the sources and uses are well modeled. And then we have the tax and fiscal assumptions and accounting assumptions and calculations. And then I do a overall check on the financial statements, whether the model contains the typical cash flow waterfall, balance sheet, income statement, and then also whether the model contains a summary sheet, which some people call a dashboard, and it actually summarizes the key inputs and outputs of the model with the right charts and tables. And finally, the most important one is to have sensitivity and scenario analysis. So once I do all this check, I'm able to actually release my first review report of the financial model. Here I want to show you, take you quickly through the one of the reviews of bad models that I did. These are real stories. So let me open it for you. Here it is. So when I open the model, first of all, I get this error message that there are circular references. So that's definitely a red flag right here in the beginning. And wait, there are also links to external files. So that's also a red flag. You don't want to have links to external files. It's very, difficult to, it's not really recommended. Plus, you can just hard code, all the parameters and then put the reference next to the cell. So that's the better way to do it. So the first thing I do, as you see, I have inserted my checklist within the financial model, and I come and I go through all the list one by one. For example, I check the color coding, and I see that when I do a quick check, I will see that the color codes are not defined. I don't know where are the inputs, where are the outputs. So you have this calculation sheet. It's fine. You're doing all your calculation within one sheet. It's okay. However, you need to separate your inputs from your outputs and calculation, which is not done here. So I put a 0 here, and I explain why I think that this has not been satisfied. So there are errors in the worksheet. There are, as you can see, there are links to external file. Yes, there are links to external files. So this is not satisfied. There are long formulas. The formulas are not unique across rows, and all that. So as you can see, after I finish, the review of the mechanical review, I already know that this is not a model that I and my team want to use going forward. So I don't want to waste my time going through the other, assumptions and other topics. I will just finish it here, and I will come and I will quickly draft an email to the financial modeler, and I will explain that unfortunately I believe that we cannot use this model for the project, and we believe that this financial model should be built from scratch. And what I will do in order to give my arguments, I just come and copy paste the same, checklist, just the mechanical here, why this is not satisfied, my comments, I put them here. And I ask them if they want to have a follow-up call to discuss these issues. But I have enough arguments to against this financial model, and I have done it very quickly. So now I want to show you another model, which is basically a well-structured standard model. So I do the same thing here. I insert the checklist within my financial model. I come and I do the quick mechanical check. I see that most of them are satisfied. This one has all the color coding, and it's well defined. It's a modular model. It's fine. So you have a summary sheet. So most of the mechanical checks are satisfied. There is one that, maybe there are some overly long and complicated formulas somewhere, and you can ask them to break them down, and you will explain why you think that it's not recommended to have long formulas. Error checks, there are error checks in this model, but you might believe that you can extend it and include some other, you can include some other checks. You can include that. So sometimes, especially when you have like models that you receive for review, sometimes they lock the macros, which I totally don't recommend. So right away you send it and you ask them for the password, but it doesn't mean that it's a bad model. You just need to get the password from them. All right, so this one passed the mechanical check, so I'm fine. I can go and do the other checks. So for example, in this model, they gave me just an EPC, a lump sum EPC cost. So what I'm telling them is that, okay, it's fine at this stage. You still don't have the contract, but it's good to have them in the model. And once we have firm contracts, and we have an EPC contractor, we can come and include the breakdown of EPC, because that's something that, everybody is looking for, especially lenders and lenders technical advisors. They want to have a look at the EPC breakdown and the other breakdowns as well. So I'm not going to, bother you going through but as you can see, I went through all of them one by one. Some of them are satisfied, some of them are not satisfied. And this percentage that I see, it is 80% satisfactory, the issues, but it doesn't mean much, it can be 80% satisfactory, but it might have some really, issues, red flags that you still want to ask them to rebuild the model. And when it's a case that I have a good model, then what I do is that you go and check my Q&A video. I will come, instead of sending it in this way, because most of them are satisfied, I come and copy these comments that I put here, same comments that I put here. I come and I put them in the Q&A sheet format, and I keep it within my financial model. So as you can see, I put the impact level of the issue that I am actually want to discuss with them, and the status, because it's the first review, so it's open, it might be closed. So if I discuss them with them and they give me enough reasoning why they did that, it can be closed. Or if they revise it in the next iteration, I close it. Or if it is pending for other information, for example for the EPC, so we can put it as pending until they get firm contracts. So instead of, as I said, instead of copy and pasting the checklist, I copy and paste the Q&A sheet in the model. I can also send the Q&A to them so that they can respond directly within the Excel sheet here, and it's going to be easier to keep track of the Q&A. So I come here and I thank them for the professional work that they did on the model, and I tell them that there are still issues that I want to discuss with them, and I copy, I give the category reference and the question and comment. I put them here in this format, and I I send it to them and I ask for a follow-up, maybe call to discuss them if it is easier for them. All right, so I'm gonna have some follow-up videos, going through individual in each section of the checklist. But this one was just to give you an overview, a general overview of this audit and productivity tool. Thank you and stay in touch.